The call came at 5:12 a.m., not a text, not a voicemail, a direct call from a number with my hometown's area code. I hadn't lived in Cedar Hollow, Vermont in 21 years, but I still recognized the rhythm of its silence. I let it ring twice before answering. Elena. I closed my eyes. Only one person still said my name like that, soft at the beginning, hard at the end, my mother. Yes. A pause measured, practiced. You should come home, your father passed last night. The word father didn't land the way it should have. It hit something older, something that had never healed. When? I asked. Heart failure, quick. She inhaled sharply, as if remembering she was supposed to sound devastated. The service is Saturday. It would mean a lot if you came. It would mean a lot. The last time I heard that phrase, I was 13 and being told to pack a duffel bag. I'll think about it, I said. Elena. There it was, the pressure beneath the softness. You're in the will. That changed the air in the room. I didn't speak. There are things you need to sign, she continued. Your brother can't handle it alone. Of course he couldn't. I looked around my Manhattan apartment. Floor-to-ceiling windows, quiet morning skyline, the life I built without them. I'll call you back, I said. She didn't argue. That should have been my first warning. 21 years earlier, my mother had stood in the kitchen of our farmhouse and told me to leave. Not screamed, not thrown things, just told me. You make this house impossible, she had said calmly, drying a plate with a dish towel. Go stay with your grandfather. Maybe he'll tolerate you better. I remember the way the faucet dripped behind her. The way my brother Daniel stood in the doorway, arms crossed. He was 17, old enough to know, old enough to say something. He didn't. I left that afternoon with a backpack and the understanding that I was the problem. That narrative held for years, until I realized something. If one person calls you difficult, maybe you are. If everyone calls you difficult, maybe they need you to be. My grandfather, Arthur Morty, lived 12 miles away in a narrow white house overlooking Lake Champlain. He opened the door before I knocked. I was wondering when you'd come, he said. He didn't ask what happened. He didn't call my mother. He simply moved aside and let me in. That was the first time I understood the difference between tolerance and protection. He gave me the upstairs bedroom. The one with the slanted ceiling and the window facing the water. You can stay as long as you want, he said. I stayed 9 years. He died 2 weeks after my 22nd birthday, heart failure. Quick, the same words my mother used this morning. Back in Manhattan, I called my attorney. Yes, she said after listening. You should go. Why? Because people who reach out after 2 decades usually want something. That's not comforting. It's not meant to be. Her name is Naomi Adler. Precise, unsentimental, the kind of woman who reads contracts the way surgeons read scans. If there's paperwork, she continued, don't sign anything until I see it. I won't. And Elena. Yes. Grief makes people sloppy, don't be. I ended the call and booked the flight. Cedar Hollow looked smaller, the farmhouse looked smaller, even the sky felt lower. Daniel was waiting on the porch when my rental car pulled in. He had aged into our father's posture. Slight forward lean, jaw tight even at rest. Elena, he said, stepping forward as if we were distant colleagues. Daniel. We didn't hug. Inside, the house smelled the same, pine cleaner and old wood. My mother stood in the kitchen. Her hair had gone fully silver, her frame thinner, but her eyes were exactly as I remembered, assessing. You came, she said. Yes. She nodded once, as if confirming a hypothesis. We're glad. That word had always excluded me. The funeral was restrained. Small town, familiar faces pretending not to stare. I stood between strangers in the back pew while Daniel sat in the front with my mother. No one introduced me as the daughter. Just Elena. As if I'd always been a guest. After the service, Daniel approached with a folder. Mom mentioned the will, he said quietly. She did. There's a clause involving you. I assumed. He hesitated. We need to review it together. That wasn't a request. We sat at the dining table where I used to do homework. My mother remained standing. Daniel opened the folder. "The property transfers to both of us," he said. 50-50. I waited. "However," he continued, sliding a document forward, "Dad refinanced 2 years ago. There's outstanding debt." "How much?" "380,000. I looked up slowly. "For what?" Daniel's jaw tightened. "Business expansion." Our father hadn't owned a business in 10 years. "What kind of expansion?" "Timber investment. It went south." "Of course it did. And my role?" "We consolidate ownership," Daniel said smoothly. "You sign over decision authority to me. I handle the sale of the land. We split whatever remains." He pushed the pen toward me. It was almost elegant in its simplicity. "Debt, urgency, family unity, signature. I'd like a copy," I said. Daniel's expression flickered. "Why?" "Because I don't sign documents I haven't reviewed." My mother finally spoke. "Do you think we'd cheat you?" I met her gaze. "I don't think I verify." Silence. Daniel forced a smile. "Of course, take it." He handed me the folder. His fingers held it half a second too long. That night, in the old upstairs bedroom, I spread the documents across the bed. Refinance papers, land assessment, transfer of authority. I took photos of everything and sent them to Naomi. 23 minutes later, my phone rang. "Do not sign that," she said immediately. I wasn't planning to. "The debt is real," she continued, "but the structure is. If you transfer authority, Daniel can liquidate assets without your consent and distribute net proceeds at his discretion." "Meaning?" "Meaning you could walk away with nothing and no recourse." I stared at the ceiling. "Why involve me at all?" "Because you're named as equal heir. Without your signature, he can't move." So that was it. I wasn't wanted. I was required. The next morning, I woke before sunrise. I walked down to the lake. Cold air, still water. I thought about the afternoon my mother told me to leave. What she actually said: "You complicate everything." At 13, I believed her. At 34, I knew better. Complication is what people call you when you refuse to be convenient. When I returned to the house, Daniel was in the driveway speaking to someone in a black SUV. A man in his 40s, sharp suit, city shoes unsuited for gravel. Daniel saw me and ended the conversation quickly. "Investor," he said casually as the SUV pulled away. "In timber." "Something like that." I nodded. I didn't push, not yet, but something had shifted. This wasn't about debt. This was about speed. At breakfast, my mother poured coffee without asking how I take it. Black. She remembered that. "Elena," she began, stirring her own cup slowly, "your father's health declined quickly. The stress of the land nearly killed him." "And now it's killing you?" I asked evenly. Daniel exhaled sharply. "This isn't funny." "I'm not laughing." My mother set the spoon down. "If we lose the property, we lose everything. You refinanced before consulting me." "You weren't here," she replied. There it was again. Absence as accusation. "I wasn't invited," I said calmly. Silence fell between us. Daniel leaned forward. "Look, the buyer is ready, but he needs a clear title. If we don't move this week, the offer disappears." Pressure. Deadline, signature. I looked at both of them. "I'm not signing this week." Daniel's face hardened. "Then what are you doing here?" The question hung there, not rhetorical, genuine. What was I doing here? Grieving, helping, or confirming what I already suspected? "I came because you said I was in the will," I said. "Now I'm here to understand it." My mother's eyes cooled. "You always did overcomplicate things." And there it was again. The narrative, recycled, predictable, wrong. I stood. "I'll stay through Saturday. After that, I go home." Daniel pushed his chair back abruptly. "Fine, but don't expect this offer to wait." I didn't answer, because here's the thing. When someone tells you something can't wait, it usually means it benefits them if you hurry. And I was done hurrying. That afternoon, Naomi sent a follow-up message. "There's more." I called her. The land valuation, she said. It doesn't match the debt ratio. Explain. If the timber investment failed as badly as Daniel claims, the land shouldn't still be appraised this high. So either the debt is inflated or the asset is undervalued. Meaning someone was lying or someone was desperate. I ended the call and looked out at the fields stretching behind the farmhouse. 70 acres, prime lake-adjacent land, $380,000 in debt, or far more in value. Suddenly, the timing of my father's death felt less like coincidence and more like opportunity. That night, Daniel knocked on my bedroom door. "I know we've had issues," he said. Issues, interesting word for exile. "But this isn't about the past." "It never is," I replied. He ignored that. "Just sign the authority transfer. I'll make sure you're compensated fairly." "How?" "I'll send you your share after the sale." "Without oversight." He clenched his jaw. "You don't trust me." "No." The word landed cleanly between us. He looked almost surprised by the honesty. "Then why did you come?" he asked again. This time I answered, "To see who you are now." He held my gaze, and for a split second I saw it, not grief, not fear, calculation. "Don't drag this out," he said quietly. "It won't end well." That was not a warning. That was a prediction. After he left, I sat on the edge of the bed. 21 years ago, I left this house believing I was the problem. Now I was back, and the pattern hadn't changed. Only the stakes had. I opened my laptop and began searching county records. Property liens, refinance filings, corporate registrations. Daniel Morty. 2 hours later, I found it. A limited liability company registered 8 months ago. Lakeview Development Group. Sole managing member Daniel Morty. Registered address, a P.O. box in Burlington. Business purpose, residential land development. Residential, not timber, development. My father hadn't expanded a failing investment. Daniel had positioned himself to acquire land, and I was the obstacle. I closed the laptop slowly. The house was quiet. My mother's footsteps moved faintly downstairs. Daniel's door closed. I sat there in the dim light of my old bedroom and understood something with absolute clarity. This wasn't about inheritance. It wasn't about debt. It wasn't even about grief. It was about control. And Daniel needed my signature to complete something he'd already started. He thought I would come home, feel guilty, feel pressured, feel sentimental. He thought I would fold. He had mistaken absence for weakness. He had mistaken silence for compliance. He had mistaken me for the 13-year-old girl with a backpack. He was wrong. The mistake Daniel made wasn't greed, it was impatience. Greed can be hidden, structured, justified, impatience leaks, and Daniel was leaking. The next morning, I drove into town under the pretense of getting coffee. Instead, I went to the county clerk's office. Cedar Hollow hadn't changed much. Same brick municipal building. Same fluorescent lighting that hummed louder than necessary. I requested every filing connected to the farmhouse property over the past 3 years. The clerk, a woman in her 60s with narrow glasses and a sharp memory, recognized my last name immediately. "Back in town?" she asked. "For a few days." She nodded, printed the documents, and slid them across the counter. No commentary. Small towns trade in silence as much as gossip. I sat in my car and reviewed everything. Refinance papers confirmed. Mortgage taken out 18 months ago. But here was the part Daniel didn't mention. The refinancing wasn't solely under my father's name. It was co-signed by Daniel, meaning the debt wasn't inherited. It was constructed. And if the land sold, the majority of proceeds would clear a loan Daniel had willingly attached himself to. He wasn't saving the property. He was extracting equity. I leaned back in the driver's seat and stared at the courthouse steps. This wasn't mismanagement. It was design. Back at the house, Daniel was in the barn with 2 men measuring the perimeter of the north field. One of them held a clipboard with a printed site layout. Residential subdivision grid, clear as day, not timber, not investment, development. I didn't approach them. I simply observed. Documentation first, emotion later. That evening, I called Naomi again. I need a quiet title injunction, I said. There was a pause. That escalated quickly. So did he. I explained the LLC, the refinance structure, the subdivision layout. She listened without interrupting. He needs your signature to transfer development rights cleanly, she concluded. Yes. And without it, he can't legally subdivide. She exhaled softly. Then don't confront him yet. I wasn't planning to. Good, let him believe you're still deciding. I smiled faintly. I can do that. The following morning, Daniel made breakfast, an unusual gesture. Pancakes, too much syrup. You sleep okay? He asked. Yes. We need to move on this, Alina. I'm reviewing. With who? My attorney. His fork stopped midair. You brought a lawyer into this. I have one. This is family. That's why. My mother set her cup down harder than necessary. You're turning this into something ugly. I met her eyes calmly. It already is. Daniel stood abruptly. You think you're smarter than everyone now because you live in the city. No, I said evenly. I think contracts matter. He stepped closer to the table. You don't understand how things work here. I held his gaze. I understand exactly how they work. Silence, my mother broke it. What do you want, Alina? Finally, the right question. I want full financial disclosure, I said. All loan documents, all development proposals, all communication with buyers. Daniel laughed. You're out of your depth. Try me. He didn't bring it up again that day, but that afternoon I received an email from an unknown address. Subject line, walk away, no greeting. No signature, just one sentence. Sign the transfer and go back to New York. I stared at the screen, not Daniel's tone, too direct, too careless, which meant Daniel wasn't alone in this. I forwarded the email to Naomi. Her response came quickly. This just got interesting. That night I didn't sleep much. The house creaked the way old houses do. I remembered being 13 in the same room, listening to the same sounds, wondering what I'd done wrong. Now I knew. I'd asked questions. People who build quiet schemes don't like questions. The next morning, I drove to Burlington, to the address listed for Lakeview Development Group, P.O. Box, of course, but businesses leave trails. I stopped at a commercial real estate office 2 blocks away. The receptionist glanced at me cautiously. Do you represent Lakeview Development? I asked. She hesitated. Yes. I'm Alina Mortis. Recognition flickered. Daniel's sister. There it was. Small towns don't forget. I'd like information on any pending land acquisitions connected to my family's property. She stiffened. I can't disclose. I'm a co-owner, I said calmly. Legally. She looked toward a glass office at the back. A man stepped out, 40s, dark suit, the same one I'd seen in the driveway 2 days earlier. Ms. Morty, he said smoothly, I'm Grant Halpern. Of course he was. We've met, I replied, briefly. He gestured toward his office. Shall we? His office smelled like polished wood and strategy. You're aware your brother intends to develop the land, he began. I'm aware he's attempting to. Grant smiled thinly. It's an excellent opportunity. Lakefront lots sell at a premium. And my father's debt. A manageable obstacle. For whom? He folded his hands. Daniel has been very proactive. Proactive isn't the word I'd use. His smile didn't falter. Your signature resolves everything. There it is again, I said softly. He leaned forward slightly. Ms. Morty, delay reduces value. No, I replied calmly. Delay exposes truth. The smile faded. We're prepared to move forward with or without you. No, I said. You're not. Silence. He studied me, and for the first time I saw uncertainty. Because here's the thing, men like Grant assume resistance is emotional. When it isn't, they lose footing. I left his office without shaking his hand. In the parking lot, I called Naomi. He's nervous, I said. Good. We move now. Already filed the injunction, she replied. Court date pending. That land isn't going anywhere. I exhaled slowly. Power shift, not loud, not dramatic, just structural. When I returned to Cedar Hollow, Daniel was waiting in the driveway. You went to Burlington, he said. Yes. You had no right. I absolutely do. His voice dropped. You're going to ruin this. No, I said quietly. You are. My mother stepped onto the porch. What is happening? Daniel's jaw flexed. She filed something. I didn't correct him, let him guess. What did you do? My mother demanded. I protected my share. Her face hardened. You always did this. Did what? Make everything a battle. I looked at her steadily. You told me to leave because I complicated things. What you meant was I didn't comply. Her eyes flashed. That's not true. It is. Daniel stepped closer. You think dragging this through court makes you powerful? No, I said. It makes it documented. The next morning, a process server arrived. Small town, big moment. He handed Daniel the injunction paperwork in front of the barn. Grant's subdivision plans were now frozen pending judicial review. Daniel read the first page, face draining of color. You went nuclear, he said. No, I corrected calmly. I went legal. He crumpled the papers slightly in his grip. You have no idea what you've started. I held his stare. I do. Because this wasn't about winning land, it was about revealing intent, and Daniel had just been forced into the open. That afternoon, my mother knocked on my bedroom door. She didn't wait for permission. You're humiliating us, she said. No, I replied evenly. I'm exposing paperwork. Her voice trembled, not with grief. With anger, you think you're righteous. No. Then what? I stood slowly. I think you needed me gone because I noticed things. Her expression shifted just slightly. You were difficult. I was observant. Silence, you'll regret this, she whispered. Regret what? She didn't answer, she left. That night I received another email, different address. Same message, walk away. This time attached was a photo, the farmhouse, taken from the road. Recent. I stared at it for a long moment, not fear. Information. I forwarded it to Naomi and then called the local sheriff. I didn't accuse, I documented, because when someone escalates, you don't react, you record. By Friday, the tension in the house had changed shape. Daniel was quieter, less confrontational, more watchful, which meant he was recalculating. Grant Halpern wasn't going to let this collapse easily. And Daniel wasn't built for surrender. That combination is volatile, but volatility favors the prepared. And I was prepared. Saturday morning, I stood alone at the edge of the Northfield. Sun rising over 70 acres that my grandfather once called the last honest view in Vermont. Daniel thought this land was a transaction. Grant thought it was inventory. My mother thought it was legacy. To me, it was leverage. And leverage, when used carefully, doesn't explode. It restructures. Daniel believed I came home to settle paperwork. He believed pressure would rush me. He believed silence would weaken me. He believed I was still 13. He was wrong. The injunction was only the first move. The next one would change everything. The court date was set for Thursday. 5 days. In small towns, 5 days is long enough for a rumor to become a version of truth. By Monday morning, Cedar Hollow had chosen sides. I didn't need to ask. You can feel it in the way people hold eye contact. At the general store, Mrs. Dwyer rang up my coffee without speaking. Not cold, just careful. At the gas station, a man I vaguely recognized nodded once and said, "Tough situation." No one asked for details, but everyone knew something was wrong. Daniel had started talking. That afternoon, he found me in the barn. "You've made your point," he said. "I haven't." His jaw flexed. Grant's furious. That sounds like his problem. It's ours. No, I said evenly. It's yours. He stepped closer. You don't understand what backing out does. I'm not backing out. I'm reviewing. You froze the land. I protected it. He laughed once, sharp and humorless. You think you're saving it. I know I am. Silence. Wind moved through the open barn door. You always needed control, he said quietly. No, I replied. I needed transparency. He held my gaze. For the first time, there was no performance, just calculation. Then he said something that confirmed everything. Grant already invested. There it was, not timber, not expansion, upfront capital. How much? I asked. Daniel didn't answer. How much? I repeated calmly. His eyes flickered. 200. 200,000. So the refinance wasn't the real debt. No. It was leverage. Yes. He exhaled slowly, as if tired of carrying the lie. You don't get it, Alina. Dad was sick. The farm was bleeding money. Grant offered a way out. A way out for who? For all of us. No, I said quietly. For you. That night I called Naomi again. He admitted it, I said. Good, she replied. Now we subpoena the LLC financials. Grant won't like that. Grant doesn't matter. She paused. Daniel does. What do you mean? If he's personally exposed for misrepresentation of co-owned property, he could face fraud charges. I let that sit. This wasn't just about land anymore. This was criminal. Do we go that route? She asked. I thought about it. Revenge would be loud, justice would be clean. Not yet, I said. Understood. The next morning, Daniel received notice of the subpoena. Grant drove down from Burlington within 2 hours. Black SUV, tight smile gone. They met in the driveway. I watched from the porch, voices low but sharp. Grant gesturing, Daniel defensive. Partnerships built on shortcuts collapse under scrutiny. By late afternoon, Grant knocked on the front door. My mother answered. Alina, she called stiffly. Grant stepped inside without removing his shoes. You're overplaying your hand, he said. I didn't invite him to sit. I don't think so. He glanced at my mother, then back at me. The development was structured under good faith. No, I replied. It was structured under omission. Daniel shifted beside him. Stop using legal language like it scares us. It doesn't need to. Grant's tone hardened. If this goes public, the property value tanks. Temporarily. And the town won't appreciate the spectacle. I'm not running for office. Silence stretched. You want a higher payout? Grant asked finally. There it is, I said quietly. Daniel's eyes flashed. Not everything is a negotiation. No, I replied. Some things are exposure. Grant studied me, and he saw it. I wasn't bluffing. I'll be in touch, he said flatly. He left. The SUV tires spit gravel on the driveway. Daniel rounded on me. You're destroying this family. I looked at him calmly. There hasn't been a family in 21 years. That night, my mother came to my room again. No anger this time, just exhaustion. Why are you doing this? She asked. Because you taught me to. She frowned. I taught you to fight. You taught me that silence gets exploited. She sat down slowly in the chair by the window. Your father believed Daniel could handle the land. Your father refinanced with Daniel. That was his decision. No, I said softly. It was Daniel's opportunity. She looked at me differently then, not as the difficult daughter, not as the outsider, but as someone who had pieced together the pattern. You've always thought the worst of us, she said. No, I replied. I just stopped assuming the best. Wednesday morning, Naomi called. We've reviewed the preliminary LLC filings. And Grant transferred $200,000 into Lakeview Development 3 weeks before your father died. I closed my eyes, and there's an unsigned draft contract transferring 70 acres contingent upon your consent. So Dad never signed. No. The air shifted. When did he get sick? Naomi asked. 6 weeks ago. And the contract? 3 weeks before he died. Silence. You're thinking what I'm thinking, she said. Yes. Daniel hadn't just leveraged debt, he had accelerated timing. Was Dad coherent? She asked carefully. Until the end. Then he knew. That landed harder than I expected. My father may have understood exactly what Daniel was doing and chosen not to stop it. Thursday morning arrived clear and cold. Courtroom small, county judge, no spectacle. Daniel sat beside Grant, my mother behind them. I sat with Naomi. Documentation was presented. Refinance terms. LLC formation. Preliminary subdivision maps. Investment transfers. Judge Carver read quietly for several minutes. Then he looked at Daniel. Did you disclose development intentions to your co-heir prior to seeking refinancing? Daniel hesitated. Yes. I didn't react. The judge turned to me. Ms. Morty. No. Simple, no embellishment. The judge shifted his gaze back to Daniel. Documentation suggests otherwise. Grant leaned toward Daniel, whispering urgently. Judge Carver continued. This court will not permit transfer or subdivision of jointly inherited property without full written consent. Pause. Additionally, this matter may warrant further review regarding financial representations made during refinancing. That was the fracture, not loud, not dramatic, but final. The injunction held, the land was frozen, and Daniel was under scrutiny. Outside the courthouse, Daniel grabbed my arm. Hard. You think you've won. I removed his hand calmly. This was never about winning. You ruined everything. No, I said evenly. You risked everything. Grant didn't look at Daniel. He walked straight to his SUV. The partnership had shifted. Investment without guaranteed return is a liability, and Daniel had just become one. That evening, Daniel packed a bag. I'm staying in Burlington, he told my mother. For how long? She asked. Until this blows over. It won't, I thought, but I didn't say it. He paused at the doorway. You always were the complication, he said. No, I replied. I was the audit. He left, the door closed. The house felt older. My mother stood in the kitchen for a long time. Finally, she spoke. He wanted to keep the farm. Did he? I asked gently. Yes. Then why refinance it? She didn't answer, because here's the thing. Sometimes people don't fight because they're weak. They don't fight because fighting exposes their favorite child. And my father had chosen peace over truth, just like she had. Friday morning, Naomi called again. Grant withdrew, she said, meaning. He's dissolving Lakeview Development. He's cutting losses. And Daniel. Personally liable for the $200,000. I exhaled slowly. That was the second fracture. Grant would not carry Daniel, which meant Daniel would scramble. Desperate people escalate, but only if they still have leverage. And Daniel had just lost his. That afternoon, he called, voice tight. What do you want? There it was, not anger, not accusation, negotiation. I want the land placed into a conservation trust, I said calmly. Silence. What? No subdivision, no sale, no debt extraction. The house remains, the acreage protected. That's insane. No, I replied, it's permanent. And the debt. You're responsible for what you signed. You're my sister. Yes. You'd let me drown. I'd let you face consequences. Long silence. You've changed, he said. No, I replied. I stopped being convenient. That night, I walked down to the lake again. Wind sharper now, water darker. 21 years ago, I left this house believing I was disposable. Now I understood something else. They hadn't wanted me gone because I was difficult. They wanted me gone because I wouldn't ignore cracks in the foundation. Daniel gambled on speed. Grant gambled on silence. My mother gambled on loyalty. They all miscalculated one thing. I wasn't emotional about this. I was precise. And precision wins longer games. By Sunday morning, Daniel hadn't returned. Grant had officially withdrawn. The court scheduled a follow-up review of refinancing disclosures, and the land remained untouched. Frozen, protected, controlled, but this wasn't finished. Daniel still owed $200,000, and desperate men look for shortcuts. The next move wouldn't be in court, it would be personal, and I was ready. Daniel didn't come back to the farmhouse. He called instead. Late Sunday night. Elena. His voice was different, not angry, not defensive, compressed. I'm listening. They're calling the loans. Of course they were. Without Grant backing Lakeview development, the $200,000 became personal liability. No subdivision, no sale,